Hello YouTube, this is DVD Review Studios here, and today we shall be doing an unboxing of the Spider-Man Legacy Blu-ray collection. This is a 7-disc limited edition Blu-ray set which contains the Spider-Man trilogy directed by Sam Raimi, and also the extra films The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, directed by Mark Webb. And the reason I picked up this Blu-ray set, I already own the 5 films on DVD, and I'm not usually one to double dip, but I grabbed this for the extra inclusions, that being the alternative cut to Spider-Man 2, known as Spider-Man 2.1, which has about 10 extra minutes of footage. And then there's also the very rare editor's cut of Spider-Man 3, which is the main reason why I grabbed this set in the first place. And I was very intrigued by that notion since it was only available, from what I could find out, on this digipack version of the trilogy released over in the US, that being known as the Origins collection. And that set goes for quite a bit of money over the US eBay, certainly a lot more than I wanted to spend to import it. But then I found out this box set exists, which comes with the Amazing Spider-Man films as well, and was significantly cheaper, so I thought, why not bite the bullet on this? And I'm actually really glad I got this now. It's a fantastic box set. Incredible detail on this one, and is also a numbered limited edition piece. This is 1625 out of 2000, and is overall a very neat little set. And so while looking at this Blu-ray set, I thought this video would be the perfect opportunity to discuss my thoughts on both Spider-Man 2.1 and the Spider-Man 3 editor's cut. And if you are interested in my thoughts on the Spider-Man movies in general, you can check out my collection overview where we go over each individual film, including the cancelled Spider-Man 4 and Amazing Spider-Man 3, which I thought was of interest as well. Looking at the outer box set design, I love this front cover with the Spider-Man character embossed, and we also have within the eyes of the hero the love interests for each set of films with MJ and Gwen Stacy. There's the Spine Spider-Man Legacy box set, and the back cover breaks down what's included on each individual digipack with the so-called Origins collection and the Evolution collection. Rated at 12 here in the UK for moderate violence, threat, and injury detail, and then we have a breakdown of each film and their individual running times. And so, removing the outer box set, we have the 2 digipacks inside, the Origins collection and the Evolution collection. So, beginning in chronological order, let's go through the Raimi trilogy. A fantastic cover design for this one in particular. I love the golden sort of silhouettes for each of the main villains featured throughout the trilogy. There's the spine. And the back cover, again featuring primarily imagery of the villains. And then opening this up, the artwork and overall the presentation is stunning for this set. It's definitely a favourite of mine in the collection for this alone, with the amount of detail and description that's provided for really each individual film, looking there at the first Spider-Man, the sequel, and then, of course, Spider-Man 3, all of which details some great sort of behind-the-scenes kinds of info, which is definitely worth having in my opinion. And then we move on over to each individual film, which each movie is kept in a cardboard sleeve, no sort of plastic disc trays or anything like that, which is a little bit disappointing, but Blu-ray discs don't usually have the tendency to scratch. So there is Spider-Man and the disc artwork. Spider-Man II capturing the ever-iconic train sequence from the film, and this rendition does include, like I mentioned before, Spider-Man 2.1, which adds about 8 to 10 minutes of extra footage with 3 new scenes, 1 alternate take, and I believe about 11 extended scenes in total. And it also appears to kind of mess with the coloration of the movie, which is something that I didn't really pick up on, but apparently the overall look of the film is changed ever so slightly as well. But in terms of what's more important, such as the extended scenes, some are a bit unnecessary in my opinion and a little bit more contrived as well, such as the added scene of J. Jonah Jameson wearing the Spidey outfit while running around his office. Not really something that I feel was a noteworthy addition, but adds a little bit more to the humor aspect. There are a couple of sequences which do thankfully enhance the film more so, such as the extended fight scenes. Mainly the one that caught my attention was the one where Doc Ock and Spidey are fighting on the outside of a building, And then to kind of break things up slightly, they smash through into a small confined space, which is interesting to see the characters fighting with a change of environments. And similarly, we also have a brief extension to the train sequence, which is fantastic in of itself and has some extended stunt performances. There's also a few bizarre kind of editing choices which do try and enhance the film, such as the iconic raindrops falling on my head sequence, where in post-production a partially translucent close-up of Peter's face is placed on either side of the screen. Not really a big fan of this change. I suppose it's done to try and make the sequence feel, I guess, more lighthearted in a way or a little bit more funnier. But it honestly comes off as just a bizarre kind of goofy YouTube edit, if nothing else. And I do also like how the film does try and play with certain scenes and tries to make them a little bit more emotionally investing, shall we say, such as one of the best scenes in the film being where Doc Ock wakes up after the accident and harms the medical staff who try and dismantle the mechanical arms. They try and make that a little bit darker with kind of certain shots being replaced and close-up shots being added of the medical staff being injured, which is an interesting perspective. Anyhow, looking at Spider-Man 2.1, overall, not a bad rendition of the film. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. I believe it was only released as part of a sort of marketing ploy in 2007 when the release of Spider-Man 3 was on the horizon, and so capitalizing on an already successful superhero movie in preparation for the third installment in the Raimi trilogy, I can see why it would kind of appeal to some audiences, especially if perhaps you hadn't seen Spider-Man 2. Having an extended cut might be worth your time or just be of interest, but it doesn't really compare as different enough in comparison to the theatrical version, and so it's just something that's kind of gimmicky, in my honest opinion, and if you're a fan of the films, it's more than likely something you are already familiar with. And so moving on to Spider-Man 3, this is where things are a little bit more interesting, in my honest opinion. So, of course, we have the usual theatrical version of the movie. There's the disc artwork. No real significant changes there. But then we have a bonus disc, which is included. And this is where I purposefully picked up the set because this includes the Spider-Man 3 Editor's Cut, which is a unique blend of new content, minor improvements, mainly with the score, and a restructure to the order in which the film's events take place. It doesn't add much, and the reason why I say that is because there's plenty of unused content which has been archived from this film, and you can find various comprehensive lists online that detail alternative shots or reshoots, scenes that were cut or changed from the film, and scenes that were proven to have been shot thanks to the published novelization, which was based, of course, on the film. So, why does this cut of the film even exist? Well, it was quite unexpected, with very little to no marketing from when it was released. It was kind of bizarre. It just supposedly came out for the 10th anniversary of the film back in 2017, and the edit was done by Bob Murawski, who has a fantastic lineup of credits as a film editor, such as the recent Doctor Strange sequel. And with the changes that were done for the editor's cut of Spider-Man 3, there are some significant changes that really do enhance the film, such as bringing back the original score composed by Christopher Young. If you weren't aware, during production of the second film, the original composer Danny Elfman found working with Raimi a miserable experience. He wasn't really able to convey his music the way he originally intended. Therefore, he was replaced in the third film, and I much prefer Young's score to what we had in the original cut of the movie. The original kind of relied on recycling music cues from the first two films. Not that this score was bad in any way, but the differences are noticeable, and that does convey stronger emotions from certain scenes in this movie. There are several changes to scenes and a handful of new scenes included also, and one of the most important in my eyes was the sequence involving Sandman's daughter Penny discovering a sandcastle in the park, and this is one of my absolute favorite additions, and it baffles me how this was removed from the theatrical cut of the film. It's a beautiful scene that really does add a lot more human quality to Sandman's desire to save his daughter and how he wants to be with her, and literally being the sandcastle was kind of the only way he could reach out to her during this sequence with him being on the run. And it's a very touching scene. It adds a lot more depth to his story. The addition of the familiar Sandman soundtrack, which is a phenomenal musical piece, really does add a more evocative element to that moment in the film. There was also meant to be a continuation of this shot in the park where Eddie Brock asks Sandman if he's interested in teaming up to stop Spidey once and for all. Not 100% certain if this shot really does exist, but there are hints of it existing, such as this very strange behind the scenes image of Eddie conversing with Flint Marko. And I've not read it, but apparently the novelization depicts this scene in full, so perhaps that would be worth picking up just out of morbid curiosity, if nothing else. I also really like how this cut of the film focused on the corruption of Spidey with the black suit and how it essentially relied on how good it felt to be bad, with Peter wearing the black suit and making him feel all the more powerful. But he didn't really realize how this was affecting his behavior. And this was more of a subtle change with the lingering shots looking at Peter sitting alone in his apartment while zooming in on the case in the closet which contained the black suit. Nothing all that special with this sequence, but I can appreciate it for what it is. On the other hand, there are a couple of scenes which are removed and reshot, such as the scene where Peter and Aunt May have the conversation in Peter's apartment that's completely removed from this rendition of the film, and also the bit where Peter apologizes for shouting at Mr. Dickovich.
Give me rent. You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
Not overly certain on why these parts were removed. It's not overly noticeable, but you can tell the second act has a couple of pacing issues, where certain scenes are added and reshot scenes are added in their favor in order for the story to make sense. And on a similar note, there is also the removal of the scene where Harry Osborn learns about his father's death from the family butler, where over the course of this film he is insistent that Spider-Man was responsible for killing his father, and rather than learning from the butler character that this was not the case and that Norman did kill himself, Harry instead looks at a photo of MJ, Peter, and himself, and then goes to join the final battle, having essentially forgiven Peter in a way and having realized that his best friend really wouldn't be capable of doing something so brutal. I can understand how this scene does fit in terms of the emotional complexity, but it does feel a little bit rushed in my honest opinion. Overall, the editor's cut is a fun kind of interpretation of a somewhat messy third installment. Is it better? Not really. I do personally feel the theatrical cut is a lot better. This isn't a bad version of the film. If anything, I'd love to kind of mix the two together. There's still a lot more out there that we are yet to see from Spider-Man 3, and I would love to see one day a newer version of the film be released, perhaps a Raimi cut of some sort. Apparently the first rendition of the film was over 3 hours long, so I guess that gives you an idea as to how much footage really was left on the cutting room floor. But anyhow, that's the Raimi trilogy. Let's move on to the Amazing Spider-Man films. Dubbed as the Evolution Collection, this contains the 2 Amazing Spider-Man movies and a bonus content disc as well. There's the front cover, again with a similar kind of art style to what was on the Raimi box. The spine. And the back cover featuring some artwork, primarily the 2 sort of main antagonists from the films. And then in terms of presentation, very similar once again, looking at some of these sort of behind the scenes kind of aspects of the film and what went into creating, I guess, a rebooted variation of an already well-beloved comic book / movie character at this point in time. So some interesting bits of trivia there and snapshots from the first film, and then we have The Amazing Spider-Man II. And here we have the Blu-rays themselves, starting off with The Amazing Spider-Man, which I've grown a little bit more partial to over the years. It's still honestly one of my least favorites, but Bringing back the Andrew Garfield incarnation of Spider-Man in No Way Home really did allow me to become a little bit more partial to that character, and in my honest opinion, kind of brought a little bit more closure to that version of the character, so not a bad thing for sure. And here is a look at the disc for The Amazing Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man II, a mess of a film, in my honest opinion, not one that I'm partial to at all. Had some interesting quirks to it, but overall I just wasn't really a big fan. But there is the disc artwork, and we have some interesting artwork on the inside there depicting Spider-Man fighting Electro. And then we also have, similarly, the bonus features disc, which features some behind-the-scenes kind of artwork on there as well. And there you have it, that concludes the Evolution Collector's set. So that's going to do it for my unboxing video looking at the Spider-Man Legacy Collection on Blu-ray. I hope you enjoyed. Overall, I would say this set is definitely worth picking up. You can grab this on Blu-ray and I believe also on 4K as well. And for the artwork and presentation, it's 100% one of the best sets that you can get these movies on. And the extra inclusions with Spider-Man 2.1 and the Spider-Man 3 Editor's Cut, especially with how rare that Editor's Cut seems to be, it's worth owning on physical media, and this set is for sure the right way to go about it. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave me a like down below. Let me know in the comments what is your favourite movie from this collection. And for more content, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, DVD Review Studios.
Are you threatening me?